So, if you've seen a lot of my videos, you know that my favorite TV show is Avatar: The Last Airbender. So I was pretty excited when the Dragon Prince was announced, mainly because one of the creators, Aaron Ehaz, was the head writer for Avatar. It initially seemed like there would be a lot of thematic similarities as well. You've got a war between powerful nations that all harness magic in different ways that has to do with mostly extinct dragons, some young protagonists from different backgrounds with an animal companion trying to bring peace to the world, and some morally ambiguous characters trying to chase them down. They did it well on Avatar, so they should also do it well here. At the same time, I have found other works trying to recreate a lot of what people felt for Avatar to be kind of underwhelming. Like, I thought Korra was pretty good, but not remotely at the same level as the original. So I really did want to like it, but I was trying not to get my hopes up. So what did I think of it? If you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that my initial plan was going to be like I was going to watch it and then live tweet it with my thoughts and opinions and stuff, but I ended up getting so immersed in this show that I just binge watched it with no breaks in between episodes and ended up going to bed at 4:30 a.m., which, by the way, I very much regret because my sleep schedule is now destroyed for at least a few more days. So one thing to note right away is that while there are a lot of similarities to Avatar: The Last Airbender, in a good way, it is very much its own distinct creation. There were times during the first couple of episodes where I'd see a few minutes of a character and think like, okay, so this is the Sokka of the show, or this is the Zuko of the show, only to be pleasantly surprised when we ended up seeing entirely new dimensions of these characters. I think definitely the closest similarity is Ezran as an analog to Aang, but even then, I don't think that you could mistake them for the same character. Like, I think Ezran has a lot more emotional maturity than Aang did when he started off, but also less of an acute sense of danger, if that makes sense. Generally speaking, the characters are just overall very well fleshed out and interesting. Now, I have a weakness in terms of storytelling, and that weakness is if you give me a good villain, I will probably love the show. Even shows that, objectively speaking, aren't that good, like Sherlock, can really appeal to me if the villains are good to watch. And the Dragon Prince definitely succeeds there. I don't think there are any purely evil characters, at least not that we've met so far, and even the characters who are morally dubious are still likable and understandable. But then, on the other hand, when they do actually go dark, it can get pretty fucked up. There's one moment in the second last episode that, and I don't know if this was on purpose or not, heavily reminded me of one of the more popular Black Mirror episodes, only with magic instead of with technology. Like, they really did that, huh? There's a lot of complexity to these characters, but they can still go to these really dark places, which I think is more narratively interesting than just Mr. Evil McBadman burning someone's house down just because he's evil. You can understand that the war is escalating and people are being pushed to worse and worse places. And the show definitely does confront those issues. It deals with a lot of bigger themes of intergenerational responsibility and conflict and being influenced by the choices and actions of your predecessors no matter how much you want to be completely individual, and I'm looking forward to seeing where else they go with that. As far as the plot itself goes, I do think it's fairly predictable. You know, there are beats that the story is going to have to hit, but I think that the characters are interesting and fleshed out enough that this isn't necessarily a problem. Even if you can kind of work out what's going to happen, you still want to stick around to find out how exactly it's going to happen. Like, you know this character is going to find out the secret that another character is keeping and they're not going to take it well, but how exactly they react and how everyone's relationship develops from that point is interesting enough that it doesn't matter. I also really got the vibe that the show was a very tiny slice of a much, much larger world. The first season was only 9 episodes, and because the episodes were all pretty short, I did feel like it was over pretty much as soon as it started. Admittedly, me binge watching the whole thing didn't really help. We started getting some pretty interesting looks into like elf magic and culture, like what exactly binding is, but there's definitely a sense that there's this whole world that we know very little about and that we're hopefully going to see more of soon. I kind of wish the season had been longer because a lot of it was about setting up these key players and pieces of a story, and there was never really this one key moment where all of that tension was released and we started to see like big fallout for these characters' actions. I guess that will come in season 2, hopefully as soon as possible. The one thing about this show that I really don't like is the animation. During fight scenes, it's fine given that fewer frames make the action fairly easy to follow, but when the show tries to slow down and have these emotional moments, it ends up looking very choppy and distracting. There were a couple instances where I literally just put my eyes out of focus because it was easier to pay attention that way. The actual scenery was very nice to look at, so one can just focus on that. And then I thought the voice acting for Ezran wasn't very good either. There were times when it just sounded kind of monotone and not very convincing. I can look past it for the most part, but it was pretty distracting at certain parts. Besides those two pretty minor things, I really ended up enjoying the show. Is it as good as Avatar: The Last Airbender? Well, it's kind of hard to tell so far because we've had so few episodes and Avatar didn't really hit its stride until its second season either. Only time will tell where they take this show, but in the meantime, I'm optimistic.